Hello, my name is Tal Liao. I'm Russian Israeli, but I guess you might already have figured it out from my accent. Prior to my current position, I was a full-time pen tester and a CNAC Red Team member. Today I'm working as a principal consultant in Singapore, providing advisory on cybersecurity aspects of emerging technology and supporting our bank strategic projects. Some of the projects that I'm currently working on are digital smokescreen for red teamers, which already have been submitted to Meter. And now I'm working on another study, how hackers impacting the financial markets, which is pretty fun so far. And yeah, I enjoy cooking, doing research, and writing. Please let me read the disclaimer now to get us started. The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely my own and do not express the views or opinions of my employer. So you're already probably asking yourself if this is just another talk on ATOs. But in this talk, I want to take you through the end-to-end ecosystem of automated account takeovers, while treating the cybercrime as a fully functioning, profit-driven business industry, considering the status quo that enables the automated ATOs. I also want to discuss my take on the reasons behind this rise and account takeover frauds and the associated costs. And this regardless to the greatest progress that has been happening recently in the overall cybersecurity awareness, whether it's in private or public campaigns. And finally, I will share my recommendations and suggestions to users and companies as someone that comes from a corporate background and not as a vendor. Therefore, I believe my opinion will be unbiased. During the study, we researched more than 30 techniques of ATOs to understand the overall ATO threat landscape, but we decided to take a deeper look on one specific ATO, an ATO that seems to be getting a lot of attention and seeing a continuous growth as it's one of the easiest attacks to automate. This attack offers high gains even for the low-grade criminals with access to a few easy-to-operate tools. And having a massive innovation industry that works behind the scenes as an industry that continuously supports and develops new countermeasures to minimize automated attack costs. Meaning anyone with a passion or a need for an extra cash just needs to hop on and start ATOing. As you already have guessed, the most obvious attack method in this list, which also can be automated in a mass scale, is credential stuffing. We just took this specific attack method as an example to explore the world of automated account takeovers. I could also point you to some of the most interesting ATO methods that I studied and practiced before, like the SDK-based ATO and the cognitive hacks-based attacks to ATO. It's also good to point out that the improper authentication vulnerability is getting a lot of attention in the HackerOne bug bounty program as an attack that could obviously lead to an ATO. If you would like to drill down to any of the mentioned ATO attacks, please feel free to ask me during the Q&A. Send me your question on LinkedIn, email, or Twitter. So let's start by covering the overview climate fostering the ATOs as a first step here. Let us take a closer look at understand the type of relationship between criminals, companies, and their users as a factor to ATO growth, particularly to automated ATOs. In one hand, the level of cyber criminal sophistication is lowered, with an access to easy-to-operate tools, continuous data leaks from companies that are collecting our KYC data, or leaks of our credentials that are being published in the market within a few minutes of the breach. Today, in the world of E2E platforms like Telegram and other similar platforms, cybercriminals are no longer required to have knowledge of how to access darknet marketplaces or maintain their anonymity. On the other hand, companies negotiating and buying back the breach data of their customer back from the cybercriminals. Companies paying off ransomware, the ransom, or hiring external company to help them with us. This is obviously goes against the official recommendations such as those from FBI. Companies adopting hypes like passwordless or promoting immature authentication models like biometrics, within a current saga of 19% in this industry. I express my worries about biometric success channels in the paper, so I'm not planning to go into the biometrics risk or share reports stats explaining why customers still prefer using passwords. We can also find today companies that capitalize from criminal activity, indirectly, of course. This happens when companies adopting sharing credentials as a strategy to raise their brand awareness or increase their market share. A good example for such companies are the subscription-based companies, like the movie streaming that we all know about. But I will avoid mentioning names for this conference purpose. Companies that are not putting in place adequate countermeasures to prevent automatic mass buyouts in retail platforms. To increase the brand hype culture, a good example for this case is the known sneakers brands that tend to sell out moments after the sneakers being placed on the shelves. And companies like social media giants with big budgets but still somehow struggling to self-regulate themselves to detect fake accounts and malicious account activity in their platforms. The last point I want to mention is the growing business models which are leveraging user data. So seeing a decrease in our data being found is not realistic, especially when the number of data breaches as well as the average cost of data breach is growing based on the identity theft resource center report. So now I want to share with you an interesting experiment conducted by NATO. NATO tried to shed some more light on the self-regulation challenges that our tech giants are dealing with. In this experiment, NATO brought an engagement of 105 different posts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and YouTube, using 11 Russian and European social media manipulation service providers. They spent 300 euros on 3,000 comments, 25,000 likes, 20,000 views, and 5,000 followers. NATO team were able to identify almost 90,000 accounts which were being used for social media manipulation. To sum up, the self-regulation by these tech giants doesn't seem to work, or there is a lack in having a significant commitment to handle this issue. A question to ourselves: if we are enabling cybercriminals to develop automation tools to manage so many fake accounts without much pushback, should we expect such companies to lead the expected change? My answer to this obviously will be no. We need to take more control. We should be very honest with ourselves. Providing such catalysts of cybercriminals enables continuous development in attack methods. But not only that. Such enablement goes far beyond accounts that don't have a big financial impact on us. Such enablement creating an ecosystem where cybercriminals developing new bypasses to ATO, anti-fraud controls, and other security controls, as we noticed in our study. To illustrate a similar POC, but in a very smaller scope, I put my personal Instagram account to test. I bought a gig on Fiverr that promised me 1,000 brand new followers to like my post whenever I post them, even if I'm posting something silly like the photo of my fan. And yes, as you see, my new fake friends keep supporting me by liking and commenting on my post within seconds of my post. But why should why should not stop? Bot needs to keep generate real traffic. So for following me and other unrelated posts in the BU for a bot to replicate real account activity. I can lie. It's nice to have such close friends that can cooperate, can appreciate my moments of the precious moments of my life. As you guys see, the number of followers are not really getting down. Every time I'm posting something, I will keep having likes. And this is for a very interesting reason. Because if bots are keep liking my post, they will be counted as authentic. So they don't do it because I just posted something. They like it from many different accounts. So this is how they basically show that these accounts are not really bots. They keep liking everything just to show that they are really authentic and they are really following you. It's not because my account is super nice, or as you see, based on my very bad pictures, I keep getting my likes. Now that we covered the companies and cybercriminals aspects of this relationship, let's close this loop with the future users and clients. For this purpose, I want to share with you this data glimpse from a data reportal report. This report shows us how our future clients base increased as the digital adoption keeps growing. Looking at these figures from this report and other related reports like the one from Edelman, we notice that the growing population is more connected to the internet and the number of accounts per user is growing. We also notice as an important figure showing that people's trust on how their data is being handled by this tech company is diminishing. I think we all agree when we say that living in an era of having an online presence comes with a direct cost of having a great chance of being found. I also want to share with you some of the ATO costs and figures that we managed to collect from most reliable sources that we could find. And yes, it was not such an easy challenge. So looking at the first one, account fraud, the last figures reported by Javelin Strategy Research in the 2020 report was that 6.8 billion in losses just in the US. This is a sharp growth from the last year, which reported about $4 billion losses in account fraud losses. So when looking at the operational costs, we have help desk costs with an average of $15 per ticket and $2 on average per minute talking to help desk. Such costs quickly become massive when looking at some of the latest credential stuffing, like the one we saw on Disney. Just as in the maybe interesting side note, myself and Begum submitted the Disney case with a full analysis to Cloud Security Alliance. This analysis should be published in the Engage's Cloud Computing Top Threats report. It was a very interesting engagement for them, just to understand how credential stuffing impacting the ATO costs. Regarding the trust costs, we observe figures stating that if there is a breach, 81% of people would stop engaging with the brand online, but there are many different costs with the different parameters that need to be taken into account when calculating the cost. I will drill down to details for every one of the mentioned ATO costs, but we will keep going with this presentation for now. I remind you that I have my contact published, so please feel free to contact me, ask me for questions on any of the mentioned costs. We can drill down to them and talk on each one of them. So the next phase will be the role of credential stuffing in automated ATO attacks. So this is the life cycle of automated ATOs with a closer look from credential stuffing perspective. This is a classic example for an automated ATO. A big portion of this life cycle applies very much to any type of ATO, and not just the automated, as you might already have figured out and noticed. So first, let's start by covering some of the reported stats to get a quick idea on where we are today. So there are 50,000 unique IP addresses making credential stuffing attempts on a daily basis. 60% answered in the large survey that they are reusing one or more password across multiple accounts. Users reuse the same password 4 to 6 times. and users have about 90 accounts on average for each person, of course. Now that we got those out of the way, let's get some idea before we drill down to this life cycle. So the first step here is acquiring access. This is the first phase where the criminal will acquire compromised account log to anonymous wallets with anonymous wallets help that usually don't require criminals to go through the known KYC process to open an account, or with a compromised credit cards. We are not getting into the small parts where how to get this credit cards, because it's way too easy, and I guess you guys already saw all this stuff, how you can get for a few dollars a credit card, and how you are onboarding to get anonymous wallet without having any KYC data onboarded. So this is very obvious today. It's not even new. So the step of preparation phase is a subsequent phase called the prepare step. This is where the cyber criminals will start configuring the tools for the attack. Pretty obvious. We will go through some of the idea how they configure those. So the next step is attack. The cyber criminal is performing the attack and creating the persistence over the attack. Basically getting the persistence over the account. The reconnaissance is where we're preparing to reliable pretext if and when it will be required for the strike in the cashing in process. Examples is get as much as information as possible with the OSINT, SOCMINT, and DSRs. DSRs are data access rights exploits. Is basically the ability to request access to all the personal information a company has on an individual. It's basically when you get into your account and going to settings and you're able to download the information about yourself, about your history, and everything about your who you are, what you are, all the information that the company is holding on you. So the best thing to go and to get more information about this is to read everything that Amber Well was writing about the DSRs, which is a really good stuff. And Ethel Dennis will be an amazing person to listen and read about the pretexts. So the next step is the cashing in. Following this is the phase where cyber criminals finished the research on the victim, and now they will start taking actions to monetize the ATO. An example will be to set a request for a loan, or a request to increase the credit limit, or issue a new credit card. We will go through much more of these examples later. Cashing out phase is the step where cyber criminals focused on moving everything that they got from the cashing in process to their own accounts. Basically taking whatever we could get in the cashing in process, whether it's credit cards, getting loans, and now in the cashing out, they need to get everything that is in account outside. And we will discuss how it can be done and what the cyber criminals need to know before they start doing it. So if you step up to the most interesting steps in this life cycle, we will see that acquiring access is basically, of course, is the first step in a life cycle of automated ATOs. So in this step, where the cyber criminals are actually going after the credentials to get the ATO, usually those credentials are in reputable and well-known account shops. A high-ranked seller for prices, sellers can sell for prices like $5 to $250, depends on the log. When I'm saying log, is basically all the information about the account and about the victim. When a cyber criminal is buying the account log from such shop, he's usually getting a few things like having an account log and seller validated. So the seller is when you go to the shops, you're getting the log and you're getting the credentials, and once you get it, it's already been through the process of validating. So the person who is receiving it, the administrators of such shops, usually in many cases when we're talking about good shops, they're doing some kind of level of validations. And later on, they will use services like instant wallets to send this from one to another, or of course use emails. But in many cases, they use instant wallets. So the second point is that cybercriminals could get a digital mask as part of the account lock package. And the last thing is the criminal will get an experience of a customer service, which means having a guarantee for full working and functioning account log. And in cases, you will get even a chat. You can talk to them. You can say what's happening or what the issue you have. But in most cases, you will just deliver, this is the problem I have, and they will just refund you and give you one more, give you another set of logs. Of course, it takes some time, but this is the process. And we are only talking about reputable account shops, not the ones that you see on those forums that everyone can get in, and it's super easy to maintain. So I just mentioned digital masks. So digital masks or doppelgangers used to bypass fraud detections and verification mechanism. This digital masks or doppelgangers are usually maintain unique behaviors of the victim, like tap touch frequencies. They hold browsing patterns, the screen time, or a field of user interests. Victims' device fingerprints, like device ID, OS version. So where they are coming from, where this very specific to victims' fingerprints of a digital mask are coming from. So those usually are coming from and originated from other kind of malware, basically info stealers malware. This is where the information is getting into. It's super specific to a super specific user. Sometimes you don't know the user, but with the proper use of configuration that we will speak later, with a specific residential proxies, we will be able to target specific victim if we have the doppelgangers and we will have the credentials. So let's keep going. So another option, as we know, as we see, of course, those are the combo lists. So basically you can purchase or find online for free, or have the most updated list that are already filtered from all the accounts that are most likely not valid, like those that are using very famous passwords. Criminals can even subscribe for a combo list as a service that are available today. So in many cases where you have the hot credentials, those being sold as a combo, as a list, as a service, this is one of the options. The other option is obviously to get all this collection type of combo lists that being published everywhere. But instead of having billions of account credentials, you're getting them filtered. You're getting them all the famous passwords being filtered. So you're getting this very nice pack of a combo list, where you don't need to do too much of the validations of emails. Those will go through the first steps of validating the emails, so you will get a pretty nice, good list after having it filtered. So this one is obviously the less interesting one, and the first one will be much more interesting for people that are really serious about ATO business. So let's just cover a few of the tools that we have here. We have basically 5 types of tools, aka bad bots. And if you go to any research or any of the vendors' reports, that's what we keep seeing. the use of the word bad bots. So I just want to put it out there. So we have 5 tools which we will quickly able to identify as which is the better one, right? So we need to understand what is bad and what is not. So we just go through one by one to understand. So let's start with the most basic one, the quick checkers. As we mentioned before, when you get the huge credential list, this is where you kind of use those. So this will be the Office 365 email checker, which is used as a first filter to check if the victims' accounts are really working. And this is by verifying if their email is valid, which in many cases, the email is being used for your username. Same as in the case that we have now, in many cases, this is your phone number. So this is the type of the first checkers that we see. Either check your phone if it's working or check your email if it's working. This is just goes as a first step, of course. So the next type of tools are the dedicated tools. And this is like an example will be here, as I mentioned, the Netflix checker. Tools that have been configured to a specific target with a limited options in their settings, like change the type of proxy or loading the combo list, like the infamous collection 2 through 5. So very focused with the headers configured already for the low-grade criminals. So just set it up. You don't need to configure too much of those headers, and set your credentials that you already got, and off you go. And one interesting factor, and I think many people overlook this, is the legitimate tools. The tools like OpenBullet and that originally were developed for developers, QA, and ethical hackers, but cybercriminals defer them to a use of malicious use. This is not the first time. This is one most interesting factors that we keep seeing, how legitimate tools being abused by cybercriminals to their own use. Very straightforward why they do this, and when you have such an amazing support and forums to support this, you just don't need to pay for anything. You just use those forums to help you out with good-hearted people that will help you always to configure your tool because they think you are doing a good thing, a good legitimate use for those. And then we have the IOs, all-in-one tools like Sniper, and those come with preloaded official configs that comes from different shops, Shopify, and all this kind of already pre-configured configs for the shops, like before we had Netflix, but here we will have just a very big list of them. So we will have, and then we will obviously will have the option to upload your own config. When you have your own to upload your own config, this is where the things become a bit tricky, obviously. And this low-grade criminals, instead of doing their own a bit scripting here, they will just go and go to websites where you hire freelancers and just ask them to make those configurations that you then uploaded them here. In most cases, the good freelancers will cost you between $10 to $15 per hour to create this config. So you don't need to go to any forum. You go to a very famous, I don't want to mention their names, where you go to these freelancers. They already kind of understand what you need. No one will speak about this, but they already understand what you need. And sometimes based on the descriptions of these jobs, you see that these people already understand why you're looking for them. So it will be very easy for the cybercriminals to find them on those platforms of freelancing platforms. And the last one is the most sophisticated type of tool. It's not really a tool, but it's basically a script your own tool option. This is where you use Phantom.js, Triple.js, using browser emulations like Puppeteer and Selenium. So the last two options usually go together with the use of digital mask if you have them. In case the attack is targeted on a specific victim, this generally means the criminal will use remote server with RDP, VPS, or a sandbox that goes through the credentials proxies. The credentials proxies, as we could see them, go through 5 mile and super amazing residential proxies where you can get them for a very low price and very close to the victim. So cyber criminals looking forward for the next gen bad bots, which is basically AI enhanced system to elevate the bad bots to the beyond level 2 of automation. If for those that are following the EV section, this is a kind of the same parallel idea where we're looking at the level 2 of automation. To get better idea on this, you can watch or read everything that Christopher Willacks presented. He is doing this amazingly and he presented this a very good way. The link will be also in the white paper. So now we are in the cashing in phase. I will cover what makes the criminals busy once they secure their access to the account. A good stat to share right from the start is the most of the ATO lasts less than 24 hours. In many cases, we're talking about only few minutes. So once you get into the account, you're getting out like in many cases. Some reports say in most cases is within few minutes. We are not talking about having this for a few weeks. So just to give you some idea of what is an ATO. So let's go one by one. An example where the criminals have an ATO of a bank account. This is just an example as a banker. So this is where the cyber criminals will apply for a home, car, or a personal loan, or even apply for a mortgage. The next one is where the criminals will try to perform different export data right exploits. Basically, to get all the information the company holds on you. Very valuable information. You can go to companies like Facebook, Twitter, and see how amazing the information you can download about the person. Of course, Google and other big firms that we all use. Criminals will try to request and later exploit the credit limit extensions. So you get a credit limit, then you can get a bigger loan. That's how it works in the banks, as we know. So on the next one, criminals will request to issue a credit card or debit card, or ask to have it sent to a mail drop. Mail drops, we have legitimate services for mail drops, where basically the mail drop is you send the credit to a pre-subscribed address. There are services that provide you addresses, and then you just send them there, and whoever is accepting it will send this to your own address. This is for the lowest grade criminals. Obviously, for sophisticated criminals, they will have their own mail drops where they send it to to people they know or people they don't know, and then these people will send the credit cards or the package to the destination. So just to give you a heads up, there are very legitimate services for this, and many of us, including me, using it for legitimate use. When when I live in Israel, I would just get the shipping to somewhere in US, and from this US spot, they will send it to Israel, just because the original shop don't ship directly to Israel. So this is how it goes for those mail drops. And the last one, the criminals could be paid to serve as a money mules independently, or even export the services to be managed by money mule herders. So you have an option to be work as a money mule, or you can just export your services as a money mule to money mule herders. And here where you get your cut depends. If you get it by yourself, you can sell it for 10%, and then with money mule herds, you usually get it for 5-7% from what we saw. So some of the other activities that can include apply and enable services like Payla. This is basically the services that you pay with your phone, person to person, P2P kind of services. You can convert money to rewards and send them across. Happens in many cases in the aviation industry, and this kind of all this and other examples like that, just like that. Obviously, for more examples, we can discuss about them and later on the Q&A. So let's go to the ATO pricing and selling. So pricing an ATO is not an easy job for individual criminal who needs to do the pricing of for ATO based on different account factors, as shown in the slide. So some examples are victim's financial history, basically looking on the account aging factor, account balance, that's the obvious one, confirmed future payments, credit score, social score based on the reconnaissance stage that we discussed, digital mask, and the last one that I want to mention is the age-based segmentation. And ATO cost changes as there is also a substantial behavior age patterns differences, like between millennials and seniors. There is even a term for that, age-associated financial vulnerability, or AAFV. So pricing becomes even more challenging when it comes to mass ATOs, which are being controlled and managed by organized threat groups. These threat groups will usually have their own facilitators, like accountants and other providers. To talk more on threat groups pricing, please join the Discord channel, and we can go to the next stage. So in this case, we will talk about the ATO selling facilitators. Once the pricing is done, we're doing the cashing in, the pricing. Now that the criminal needs to find the best platform to sell the ATO log as a package. So criminals can use middleman services that could be found in forums, even offered by forum admins themselves, with a promise that they won't run an escrow exit scam, which is a big fear among us all. In many cases, such services using instant vault services to make sure that whatever you send is getting right away. Once you open this, the money is being released. This type of services provide quality assurance and money transfer assurances, such as of the middleman services, not only good providers of credentials on demand services, or as a subscription services, but also serve as an active party buying out a combo list as they emerge. So for these forums, on many such platforms, the admins are not only doing the administration of the forums, but they are active actors in this industry where they provide different different services, as I mentioned. Why? Because if you have a successful forum, basically you are showing your credentials as someone that's trustworthy, and thus you can offer services that are that your own clients or your own participants and members of this forum not always can be trusted. So it's very much you have very different kind of access points to get the information, to get your credentials, either from the admins themselves that operate the forums and operate this kind of other services, or you have the members themselves that provide services. And we will talk about later about the other services that we have here. So one more option is obviously sell the log to an account shop, marketplaces with a seller commission for 5 to 15%. And the other option is sell independently in digital intangible storefronts. For example, Shopee, Zelly, Deer.io. These services offered for a small monthly fee. This type of services can even, as we mentioned, can be embedded directly to the web forms. So not only you have indirectly service that you can sell, you can embed some of those shops within the posts of the form. And in some cases, you can even send a DM to a person with embedded shop front. So it will be super easy for a person to buy directly from your own DM. So amazing progress. And I keep seeing this kind of services, and it keeps amazes me how it's getting done. The last option, obviously, that we see is the Telegram shops. That we see in Discord channels and we see in other channels, but obviously this happens very publicly and super easy to access with Telegram groups. So in the cashing out phase, the criminals are focusing on what they could do after what was already done on the cashing in phase, besides the obvious action of reselling and account logs. So now we are focusing on how to get everything that we put in the account outside of the account to the criminal's account. And this is where it's getting tricky. And this is where we're looking at the high-end, sophisticated people, criminals. So criminals to securely transfer or any value from the victim's account, the criminals need to be equipped with understanding of regional and international legal regulatory operation measures and AML restrictions, like the ones that been adopted due to the Patriot Act, with a notable example that requires a trace of businesses to report cash transactions of more than 10,000. Some of them you can see here. Cyber criminals also understand that if they will try to outsmart this restriction, they could be issued with a suspicious activity report, SAR. All these different types of restrictions will usually be bypassed with alternative methods to move the money, such as smurfing method, the famous one, which basically means breaking down the cash into smaller chunks and depositing them into different accounts. Some of the other ways are point transfer, setting gift cards, using P2P payments to send money to criminals' accounts using services like PayNow that we have here in Singapore. And the last one, one of the last ones are account ransomware. This means basically the criminal will be asking for some ransom to release the account. So, to get the understanding clearer for what is different between SAR, CTR, and why the criminals need to understand them, we could see that in the last few weeks what's happening in a few banks, but we can actually go through them in the Q&A or a Discord channel to go through and understand exactly what is the difference with them and why the criminals need to understand them. So let's finish up now with our lessons and learnings. So let's go through a few of them. Avoid the adoption of weak attitudes and mentalities like assume breach and not if but when. Something that we discussed in a white paper. I'm a very much big believer in this. Use one or more lookup services. So few of the lookup services can be found here. Adopt unified standard for multi-channel account accesses. Treat security as a profit driver for incentivizing users to adopt MFA through customer engagement. Some of the examples that we saw are from MailChimp, offering 10% discount for 3 months, even when the clients are setting their own 2FA. And same idea we saw from Epic Games, from us who are playing this probably already know that the Fortnite players being awarded with a credit score to enable their 2FA factor to enable 2FA. avoid buying bot management tools just because it's blocking bad bots. Not all bad bots are the same. So we saw that several tools that are mentioned as bad bots. So obviously not all bad bots are the same. In many cases, from what I saw from bot management, are very much working on the first, second layer of protection, not really getting to the bad bots or the sophisticated bad bots. So really be aware of what you're looking for. Be aware of data access rights exploits and ask help if you struggle to self-regulate your user accounts. So we saw this from NATO example, and we saw this from different examples, how and why the companies are having such a trouble to find the fake accounts and where to put the right adequate tools and controls to stop this obvious, easy to find behavior. And maybe one of the most interesting ones is optimize your MFA structure. This is by creating collaboration among UI and UX developers, customer experience, and business leads, software engineers, and pen testers. Basically creating a small war room where you discuss about the MFA structures. Very good to understand what's the difference between customers experience engineers and UI and UX developers. So all these people should be in one room where you discuss about your structure. Prioritize frictionless use UX while minimizing this risk, which fits your business flows and requirements. In many cases, we see vendors are coming in and saying, this is how you should structure your MFA just because your competitor done. This is wrong practice. You should understand exactly how it works for you. I could give many examples of this, how different seems similar businesses, but very different when you are really going into the payment process and updating details process. Consider pros and cons of different structures, how to combine three types of MFAs in the continuous, adaptive, and repetitive authentication process. All these words are maybe complex here, and maybe they seem the same, but the continuous, adaptive, and authentative are very important to understand. We mentioned them in a white paper, where we just need to structure it in a way that will be very easy to a person to understand, while having even saving money on the setting them in the right way. We've gone through them several times, so please read more in a white paper if you have some time. To go through some of the suggestions for users, subscribe for lookup services such as Have I Been Pwned, Breach Alarm, Dhashed, one of those. Use password managers for all your accounts that are not financially critical to you. Share your passwords in a responsible way. I'm not saying don't put several passwords. We discussed several business models from several companies that are using this kind of method of, hey, let's share the password. So let's just make sure that we sharing our password in a responsible way when we need them. Get familiar with a way to set security freeze or on a credit reports in your country. So once there is a breach, you'll be able to be covered. Stay available to your critical account providers. This is especially important in a case where there are data breaches. So make sure that your account details, phone, email is updated. If you decide not to have one of your social media anymore, your social media accounts anymore, you still better not to close them. Again, not closing them, but you need to maintain some level of control over your accounts. You better choose to suspend or alternatively pollute your accounts with wrong data, delete your posts and albums, change location, generate fake photos of yourself. And remember that you are basically a data asset to these companies. So if you have a polluted data asset, you will not be valuable to this type of companies that are relying only on your data to monetize your account. Some of the things that were worth looking at: don't follow blindly biased surveys and studies. We saw from a very famous companies things that are saying using multi-factor authentication blocks 99.9 of the account hacks, or two-factor authentication blocks 100% of automated bot hacks. These two, as mentioned, are given by two tech giants, but I don't want to mention the names here. Another one is enable 2FA for all of your accounts. This is what you see in many data breaches news. When people just start giving this advice, please enable 2FA. So just be aware of this. And I believe in many of us think that YubiKey is a cool concept. Yes, it's nice, but do we really need one more physical key in our pockets? And the last one is very new to me, is the zero trust control contact policy. Using slogans like hang up and call your financial institution. In many cases, when I personally hang up the phone and I call back, I get forwarded to a bot. So having such empty recommendations and then redirect me to a bot is not really good practice. So we just need to be aware of all of those. So this links leads to the white paper if you guys want to have a look. And thank you very much. And we will go now to the Q&A and Discord channel.